How you all doing? My author story or presentation is on Machado Diesis, if I'm saying it correctly. And it's pretty much straightforward. Going through the presentation. Who is Machado Diesis? This is actually one of his surnames. His original name is Joaquin Maria Machado Diesis, or we just pretty much use it, or our middle last name for short. He was pretty much a Brazilian novelist, poet, playwright, short story writer, widely regarded as the greatest writer of Brazilian literature. And of course, we don't take that lightly. He has a lot of work that he has presented. But one particular story that we were going to look at today, or one of his works, is The Rod of Justice, which was, of course, one of the readings that we were assigned during the semester. And pretty much his work ethic usually reflected parts of his life. After doing a little research, he was born in an era of slave trade in Brazil. And even digging into that, it showed that he was pretty much in that environment until he was at least 49 years old, or what we can go based off to date. And that was as a result of that, one of the things he took with him was to pretty much expose how that lifestyle was pretty much ran. Even though after it was abolished, the consequences were still being used, even though the slave trade had been abolished. But again, the purpose of his work was really to pretty much go and talk about the slave labor and the different things that he used and how it affected people's lives and how the power was misused by the leaders of that time. And The Rod of Justice is pretty much one of those stories that kind of shows, and I wouldn't even necessarily say it also gives you another insight as in how people are treated, even how we may turn around and say things like the slave mentality. But one of the characters, or the main character, Daniel, he was pretty much supposed to follow in his family's footsteps and as it relates to the plans that they had set aside for him, but he didn't feel like it was his calling. So even then he attempted to, but tried to run away from seminary. And after that, he kind of realized that it was his father's idea and that he tried to pretty much just do things on his own. And his father was like a pretty powerful man. So the only person he felt that had an influence on his father was his godfather. And during his story, it goes and tells us that Damiel ran to his sister's house, his godfather's mistress' house, and tried to influence her. But even then, you can kind of tell that they were under that slave mentality as well, because she had workers there. And one of the issues that he ran into there, where he promised to save a little girl from getting beat because she was too fascinated with Damiel at the time, to the point she did not complete her work. But the story really boiled down to talking about him having to make a decision, make a choice of whether to simply spare his own life or spare her from the rod on that day. So the Rod of Justice pretty much is the purpose of that, and also goes into talking about the work ethic that he had. And that is pretty much one of the stories, and just a quick display of how his life was, based off all the works that he had. That's pretty much one of the stories that kind of gives you a closer resemblance to show how he intertwined the two.